Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to completely shift how you think about prehistoric survival and, honestly, the very roots of human intelligence. Because we aren't just looking at old rocks and bones here, we're actually exploring the invisible maps our ancestors carried around in their minds.
To really wrap our heads around this, I want you to picture something we've all experienced. You wake up in the dead of night, your mouth is completely dry, you are just incredibly thirsty.
So what do? Well, you probably just reach for a glass beside your bed. Or maybe you shuffle into the kitchen and turn a tap. Boom, there's water. You drink it down without a second thought about where it actually came from. We are so incredibly used to this modern convenience that we totally forget what an absolute luxury immediate access to water really is. Honestly, your brain barely even registers the event.
Now I want you to strip all of that away. Remove the tap, remove the glass, the plastic bottles, and just erase every road, pipe, well, or water station you have ever known.
Suddenly, you're standing out in an unfamiliar landscape. It's blistering hot. Your group is moving. You've been walking for miles, and you have absolutely no idea where your next drink is coming from. For prehistoric humans, this wasn't just some minor inconvenience. Thirst was a very real, pressing problem that dictated literally everything: where you lived, where you traveled, and ultimately, whether you'd even survive to see tomorrow.
Section 1. Reading the Invisible Landscape.
You see, our ancestors didn't need to spot a giant blue river from a mile away to know water was nearby. They didn't just wander around hoping to hit the jackpot. They actually learned to read the hidden clues. When you look across vast stretches of time and entirely different climates, the archaeological evidence is just astounding. Around 2 million years ago at Olduvai in Tanzania, humans were already navigating shifting rivers and shrinking lakes. Fast forward to 780,000 years ago at Gesher Benot Ya'aqov, or even 23,000 years ago at Ohalo II. Time and time again, the evidence shows humans repeatedly returning to very specific locations, even as the environments changed around them. This proves water wasn't found by lucky wandering. It was found by deliberate, calculated landscape reading. They figured out how to survive in places where water availability could change on a dime.
So how exactly did they do it? Well, when water was invisible, they looked for the traces it left behind. A dry landscape fundamentally changes when there's a hidden water source. Our ancestors looked for things like a sudden patch of green vegetation popping out against brown brush. They'd notice concentrations of animals, or maybe lines of trees following ancient drainage channels. They'd feel for noticeably soft ground right under their feet, or listen closely for bird and insect activity. Now, did any of these clues guarantee water? No, but survival rarely gives you guarantees, right? It gives you probabilities.
Section 2. When the map dries up. Think about when parts of East Africa became a harsh semi-desert roughly 1 million years ago. What do you do when the familiar map in your head simply dries up? Well, the incredible thing is that the dry landscape itself became the map. Even when the environment got incredibly tough, humans did not just wander randomly. Research actually shows that early humans, like Homo erectus, repeatedly occupied fluvial environments, basically places historically connected with rivers and water. A dry riverbed could tell you that water once flowed there, meaning a familiar valley could be the exact spot where water might collect again. They remembered the terrain.
And finding water meant finding a hub of life. Take ancient sites like Ohalo II, located near the Sea of Galilee. Prehistoric humans weren't just out searching for water in isolation. They were searching for landscapes where water made literally everything else possible. One single location beside a major freshwater lake solved several survival problems all at once. It gave them drinking water for sure, but it also brought in fish and birds. It allowed plants to grow nearby, which meant food, plus wood for fires. One spot became a base for repeated activity because water brought the whole ecosystem together.
Section 3. Building the Prehistoric Network.
Returning to the same place over and over again fundamentally changes how you view your environment. It builds these random landmarks into a highly sophisticated mental network. And this brilliantly illustrates what we can call the algorithm of prehistoric survival. Think about this step-by-step process. First, you notice several environmental clues, say a specific bird call combined with a change in plant life. Second, you combine those clues in your mind. Third, you predict where the water should be. And fourth, you move. That is a surprisingly sophisticated form of reasoning. You aren't seeing the answer directly in front of you, you're predicting where the answer should be, entirely based on indirect evidence.
So here is the absolutely crucial point, this major cognitive shift between memory and understanding. Memory is just knowing where water was, like, oh, I found water by this rock last year. But there's a huge weakness there. Memory can be wrong. A river can change course, or a lake can completely dry up during extreme climate shifts. Understanding, on the other hand, is knowing why water is there. If you understand that water collects in low ground after rainfall, or that certain vegetation stays green during a drought because of underground moisture, you've learned a pattern. And once you unlock that pattern, you can survive in entirely new, unfamiliar regions. It's a real game changer.
Section 4. The power of collective memory. Prehistoric humans had one final, massive advantage, and it's something that defines our species to this day. They weren't learning alone. Which brings us to the power of shared knowledge. 0. That is the exact number of written words or drawn maps required to pass down this incredibly complex survival strategy. You didn't need every single person to discover every water source from scratch. A child simply learned this reference system by following an experienced hunter. The older hunter might just point toward a distant ridge, and the child learned, okay, that ridge marks a route toward water. Years later, that child grows up and leads someone else. The landscape itself became the reference system. This inherited information transformed into a collective survival strategy.
This changes our entire perspective on early humans. Finding water wasn't just about pure physical survival. It's deeply connected to the dawn of human intelligence. It required prediction. Survival depended on imagining what you could not yet see. The water hiding behind that hill. The resources that would magically appear when the seasons changed. It was the unique ability to connect yesterday's memory with today's observations to plan for tomorrow. Your ancestors didn't just passively adapt to their landscapes. They literally learned to read them, making a raw biological need the catalyst for complex predictive reasoning.
I want to leave you with this final thought. You do not always need to see the thing you are searching for. Sometimes you only need to understand the traces it leaves behind. The next time you turn a tab or just grab a glass of water without even thinking, I want you to ask yourself, how much of our complex modern human intelligence is built right on top of those unseen traces our ancestors learned to read in the dust millions of years ago?